In the old days, before kings feared words, there was a drum that spoke only truth. When it finally found a boy brave enough to strike it, secrets fell, crowns shattered, and the ancestors rose to speak. This is the story of the talking drum that could not lie. The Kingdom of Ayere lays cradled between the golden hills of the east and the whispering forest of the west. Its soil was red as sunset, its river sang with the laughter of spirits, and every morning, the talking drums awoke before the roosters. Their voices rippled from hill to hill, carrying greetings, news, and blessings faster than any horse could gallop. In Ayere, it was said that a drum could speak more truth than a man with 10 tongues. But among all the drums, one was feared and revered above the rest, Ayanmiri, the drum of deep waters. No one remembered when it was carved, only that its skin was taken from a leopard struck by lightning and that a great ancestor's soul was sealed inside it. It was said that when Ayanmiri spoke, even the ancestors leaned down to listen. Among the royal drummers was a young man named Ayo, an orphan raised in the shadow of the palace walls. His fingers were quick, his ear sharper than the blacksmith's blade. While others heard rhythm, Ayo heard meaning. When the elder drummers played, he could tell who was angry, who was joyful, and who hid soul behind their beat. The others teased him for it. Ayo hears ghosts in the drums, they would laugh. Perhaps the spirits have adopted him, another would whisper. Ayo only smiled. He did not argue. For when he played alone at dusk, he truly did hear whispers, words hidden between the beats. Soft, like wind stirring dry grass. But he never told anyone what the drum said. Not yet. Every 7 years, the kingdom held the Festival of Echoes, when drums from every village gathered to awaken the spirit of Ayanmiri. On that day, no one lied, no one fought, and even the king bowed before the ancestral rhythm. King Adewale was a just ruler, though age had bent his back and dulled his sight. His advisor, Chief Oloren, was a man of smooth speech and quick smiles, the kind that hit teeth like knives. As the festival drew near, a dream visited Ayo. He saw a glowing ancestor clothed in smoke and stars. The spirit said, "When you strike the first beat upon Ayanmiri, truth will awaken. Be ready, child, for truth walks with thunder." Ayo awoke trembling, sweat on his brow. He went to the elders and begged to be allowed to play the sacred drum. They laughed at first, until the king himself dreamed that same night of a young drummer standing before a storm. He summoned Ayo at once. "Let the boy play," said the king. "Perhaps the ancestors have chosen their own mouth." The morning of the festival arrived in a blaze of color. Women adorned with beads danced like flowing rivers. Men painted their bodies with white chalk and lifted their spears in salute. Smoke from roasted yam and goat meat curled into the air as thousands gathered before the palace square. In the center, Ayanmiri rested upon a carved stool of ebony wood, its hide shining in the sun, its cowrie decorations glinting like eyes. The drums seemed to breathe. The drummers began, each taking turns, weaving rhythms of greeting, praise, and prayer. The crowd cheered. But when Ayo stepped forward, silence spread like harmattan dust. Even the birds grew quiet. He placed his hands on the sacred drum and felt a pulse beneath his palms, slow, steady, alive. Then, with a deep breath, he struck the first beat. Boom! 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 The sound rolled across the square like thunder over the hills. The rhythm was powerful, ancient, almost human. The people gasped as Ayo's hands moved faster, the beat speaking in the sacred tongue. "Oba Adewale, King of Ayere. The ancestors greet you." The crowd murmured, they could understand the rhythm. The words were clear as speech. Ayo's heartbeat matched the drums. His hands moved on their own, guided by something unseen. The drum's voice deepened. "But truth sleeps beneath your throne." A chill swept through the air. The dancers froze mid-step. The king frowned, his hand trembling. Still the drum spoke. The blood of the heir is not royal. A great cry erupted from the crowd. The queen gasped and clutched her son, the young prince. The king staggered as if struck. Chief Oloran's face turned pale beneath his dark skin. Enough, the advisor roared. This is witchcraft. See him. But Ao dropped the drumsticks and stepped back, eyes wide with terror. The drum continued to sound, though no one touched it. Dum. 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 Truth never dies. Dum. 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 Then silence. The air was thick and heavy. No one moved. No one dared to breathe. The king, shaking, whispered, "Take the drum to the shrine. Let no man touch it until the diviners speak." Guards rushed to carry Ayanmiri away, but the moment they lifted it, thunder roared across a cloudless sky. The people screamed and scattered. And Ao. He stood rooted, the echo of the drum still throbbing in his ears and in his heart. That night, the palace was shrouded in unease. The king's court argued in hushed tones. The queen wept behind her veil. The prince sat alone, whispering prayers to the ancestors. And Ao was locked in his hut, guarded by 2 soldiers who refused to look him in the eye. Sleep would not come. When the moon reached its highest point, Ao heard it again, the faint hum of the drum calling his name. He rose, trembling, and crept to the shrine where Ayanmiri had been sealed. The guards were asleep. He slipped inside. The drum sat in the moonlight, its cowries glimmering like watchful eyes. Ao knelt and whispered, "Why did you speak such words? You have thrown the kingdom into madness." The drum answered, not in sound, but in his mind. The voice was ancient, echoing like waves against rock. "You have awakened me. I am the tongue of truth, long buried beneath silence. Every lie shall fall before my rhythm. Truth will no longer sleep." Ao's breath caught. He touched the drum's surface, warm, pulsing, and felt a surge of power through his veins. He understood then, this was no ordinary drum. This was the voice of the ancestors, and he had become their chosen messenger. At dawn, the cock crowed, but no drums replied. The land of Ayere was quiet, too quiet. The people waited for the morning beats that carried daily greetings, but none came. Even the birds seemed to listen for something lost. From the palace balcony, King Adewale looked down at his silent kingdom and whispered, "The gods have spoken. But can a man survive the truth they send?" Far below, in the shadow of the shrine, Ao sat beside the sacred drum, knowing that his hands had unleashed something that could never be silenced again. The ancestors had awoken, and truth was walking the earth. The sun no longer rose in Ayere as it once did. Since the festival of echoes, a strange silence hung over the land, a silence so heavy it seemed even the wind dared not breathe. The talking drums, once the heartbeat of the kingdom, now stood mute, their voices hushed by fear. Only Ao heard them still, in his dreams, in the rustle of leaves, in the distant rumble of thunder. And always, the same whisper reached his heart. Truth will no longer sleep. 3 days after the sacred drum Ayanmiri spoke before the people, King Adewale summoned his council. The palace hall was crowded with elders, guards, and diviners whose cowries clicked nervously in their hands. At the center stood Ao, eyes lowered, wrist bound by rope. The king's voice trembled, with age or with fear, none could tell. "You," he said softly, "played the sacred drum and brought shame and chaos to my house. Tell me, boy, did you summon this voice yourself, or do the gods truly speak through your hands?" Ao knelt, his head bowed. "Kobiyisi, I only struck the beats I was given in my dream. I did not command the drum to speak, it spoke to me first." A murmur rippled through the court. Chief Oloran, tall and sharp as a spear, stepped forward with a sneer. Dreams are for fools and madmen. The boy bewitched the drum. He seeks to poison the people against their king. The crowd murmured again, fearful. The king closed his eyes, pain lining his face. Silence, he said at last. Whether by witchcraft or miracle, the ancestors have spoken. We must know what they want. The royal diviner, Baba Ojini, approached. His eyes were pale with tears, his staff carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. He spoke slowly, as if measuring each word. The voice from the drum is not evil. It belongs to an ancient spirit bound to truth. But truth, when awakened, demands sacrifice. Whose sacrifice? Asked the king. That, Baba Ojini said, the drum will reveal in time. The room fell silent again until Chief Oloran broke it with a false smile. Then perhaps, Kobiyisi, we should carry this drum across the neighboring kingdoms. Let their diviners interpret its riddles. Perhaps truth hides not here, but beyond our borders. His words dripped with honey, but Eo saw the venom beneath. Yes, the king agreed reluctantly. Let it be so. Take Ayanmiri on a journey across kingdoms. Let the truth reveal itself. And Eo shall go with you. The advisor bowed deeply, hiding the glint of cruelty in his eyes. He would obey, and in the wilderness, ensure the drum and its boy never returned. A week later, Eo set out from Aya with Chief Oloran, 2 palace guards, and an old cart carrying the sacred drum wrapped in white cloth. The road was long and red like blood, stretching through forest humming with unseen spirits. Eo walked behind the cart, his heart heavy. Each night he dreamt of the drum calling his name, but when he reached out, it vanished into mist. He began to wonder whether truth itself wanted to be free, or feared what it might destroy. On the 3rd night, while the others slept, Eo untied the cloth covering Ayanmiri and whispered, "Why do you trouble me, ancient one? Why choose me, a boy with no name, no bloodline?" The drum's surface shimmered faintly under the moonlight, and a voice stirred in his mind. Because the proud cannot bear truth. Only the humble can carry its weight. You are chosen not for your strength, but for your heart. Eo bowed his head and wept silently into the dust. After 10 days, they reached Ekiti, a rich kingdom famed for its glass beads and cunning queens. Its ruler, Queen Marank, welcomed them with smiles that did not touch her eyes. "The king of Ayere honors us," she said, though her gaze lingered coldly on the covered drum. "We have heard rumors that your sacred drum now speaks with a man's voice. Is it true?" Chief Oloran bowed low. "Indeed, my queen. We seek wise ears to interpret its words." "Then let it speak," she said. "Let us see if your ancestors know truth from lies." The palace gathered in the great courtyard, filled with music and fear. Eo felt the eyes of hundreds upon him. With trembling hands, he uncovered Ayanmiri and struck the first beat. At first, the drum spoke softly, blessings to the queen, praises for her people. The crowd relaxed. But then, the rhythm changed, faster, sharper, like the heartbeat of a haunted animal. The drum fell silent. A gasp swept through the court. The queen's face went pale, then red with fury. "Lies," she screamed. "The boy lies." Her council whispered among themselves. Everyone knew the story, how the queen's elder sister had died mysteriously years ago, leaving Marank to ascend the throne. "Seize him," she ordered. "Seize the boy and the cursed drum." Swords flashed. Eo stumbled backward, clutching the drum. Chief Oloran smirked, the moment he had waited for. "Yes," he shouted, pretending outrage. "The boy brings ruin wherever he goes. He must be destroyed." But before the guards could reach him, lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled, though no rain fell. The crowd screamed and scattered. In the chaos, Eo ran. He fled into the wilderness, guided only by moonlight and the faint whisper of the drum at his side. Thorns tore at his legs, branches whipped his face, but he did not stop until the palace lights of Ekiti vanished behind him. At dawn, he collapsed near a stream, his body trembling. He laid the drum beside him, heart pounding. "Why?" he whispered hoarsely. "Why do you bring me nothing but trouble? I speak truth, yet the world only hates me for it." The drum was silent for a long while. Then it spoke again, gently. "Truth burns before it heals. Those who live by lies must first feel its fire." Ayo bowed his head and wept again, but he also understood. The path of truth was lonely, yet sacred. As he sat there, a woman's voice broke through the forest behind him. "If you are running from death, you've chosen the right forest," she said. Ayo turned. A tall woman with copper bracelets and a woven sash approached slowly. Her eyes were calm, knowing. She carried a calabash filled with herbs and smelled faintly of rain. "Who are you?" Ayo asked wearily. "I am Ayanu, a healer," she said. "And you?" "You carry a drum that hums even when it sleeps." Ayo hesitated, then told her everything, the festival, the revelations, the flight, and the voice within the drum. Ayanu listened without interrupting, then nodded. "I have heard of this drum. My grandmother spoke of it, the voice of truth bound in skin and wood. It awakens only when the world is drowning in lies." She touched the drum lightly. "If it has chosen you, then your path will not end in one kingdom. There are greater lies yet to uncover." For weeks, Ayo and Ayanu traveled together, from hidden villages to empty plains. Everywhere they went, the drum whispered of secrets buried under royal pride, a king who stole his brother's wife, a general who sold his army to enemies, a merchant who built wealth on blood. Word of the boy drummer spread across the lands. Some called him prophet. Others called him curse. Chief Oloran, meanwhile, returned to Ayere with his false tale that Ayo and the drum had been lost in the storm. The king wept, believing his son's scandal buried forever. But the ancestors were not done. One night, as Ayo and Ayanu camped near the river, the heavens broke open in storm. Lightning danced across the sky, thunder roared like drums of war. Ayo raised Ayanmiri to protect it from the rain, and suddenly it beat on its own, louder than the storm itself. All truths lead to one. The liar sits upon the golden throne. The words struck Ayo like a blade. He stared into the fire, realization dawning. Like dawn over blood. "The king," he whispered. "The final lie is in Ayere." Ayanu touched his arm. "Then the journey is not over. The ancestors have called you home." Ayo looked toward the east, where lightning forked across the horizon. The storm raged, but inside him burned a calm, steady fire. He knew what must come next. Truth was leading him back, to where it had all begun. The journey home began beneath a wounded sky. Clouds hung low over the hills of Ayere, heavy with rain and unspoken truths. The earth smelled of wet dust and endings. Beside Ayo walked Ayanu, the healer, her step steady, her eyes filled with knowing. On Ayo's back rested the sacred drum, Ayanmiri, wrapped once more in white cloth, though both knew its silence was only sleep, not death. For many moons they had wandered, revealing hidden evils across the kingdoms. But now, the drum had spoken its final riddle. The liar sits upon the golden throne. And so, the path led back to where the lie began. Ayere had changed. The once lively markets now whispered with fear. The talking drums, once proud messengers of the land, were silent as stones. The people moved with heads bowed. Guards patrolled the streets like shadows. When Ayo and Ayanu reached the palace gates, they found them draped in black. A herald stood watch, his voice tired. "The king lies ill," he said. "The ancestors have turned their faces away." Ayo's heart clenched. He had loved King Adewale once, as a father loves a son he never had. But truth had revealed cracks beneath that love. He and Ayanu slipped through the city at night, avoiding patrols, until they reached the old shrine where the drum had first spoken. The air inside hummed faintly, the spirits remembered. Ayo knelt before Ayanmiri, whispering, "The people suffer. The truth burns in silence. Tell me what must be done." The drum answered softly, its voice low and weary, like wind through hollow wood. "At dawn, play me once more, before the people and the throne. All must hear. All must choose." Morning broke with crimson light. The palace square filled with murmurs as news spread, the boy drummer has returned. Guards dragged Ayo and Ayanu before the council, Chief Oloran at its head, robes gleaming, his eyes sharp as blades. "By the gods," he hissed, "this cursed boy lives." Ayo lifted his chin. "Truth cannot die, no matter how many lies bury it." The king was carried out on a litter, pale and frail, his eyes clouded with sorrow. The prince, tall and proud, stood beside him, confused, restless. The people watched in silence, hope flickering like a dying candle. "Let him speak," croaked the king. "If the ancestors still have words, let us hear them, and be judged." Ayo placed Ayanmiri on the ground before him. He looked once at Ayanu, who nodded, her hand resting on his shoulder. Then he began to play. The first beats were gentle, echoes of life, birth, and blessing. The crowd sighed, remembering the joy the drums once brought. Then, the rhythm deepened, fierce, relentless, ancient. Thunder answered from the sky. The voice of the drum filled the square, mighty as a storm. "Oba Adewale, beloved of the people. Ye who hid truth to protect peace. The throne you built is rooted in deceit." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Chief." Oloran stepped back, his smile cracking. "Lies," he shouted. "This is the same witchcraft that poisoned our festival." But the drum's rhythm grew louder, shaking the ground. "Chief Oloran, you who carried the king's burden in darkness. You who poisoned the queen's heart with desire. You who made her bear a son that is not the king's." A roar of disbelief swept through the people. The queen, who had stood silent beside her son, cried out and collapsed. The prince turned pale, his sword clattering to the ground. "Mother, is it true?" he whispered. She wept into her hands. "Forgive me, my child. The spirit deceived me. I knew not the depth of his spell." All eyes turned to Chief Oloran, whose face twisted in fury. He drew his blade and advanced on Ayo. "You meddling child. I will silence you and your cursed drum." But before he could strike, lightning tore through the sky and split the palace tree in two. Thunder roared like the laughter of the gods. Oloran stumbled, the blade falling from his hands. The drum beat on its own now, a deep, resonant, divine. The drum knows all. The drum hides nothing. Those who lie shall drown in their own echo. A great wind rose, swirling dust and light around the courtyard. People fell to their knees. The drum's cowries glowed as if lit from within, and from its cracked skin rose a spirit of pure rhythm, shaped like a man of smoke and stars. The spirit spoke, and its voice was not sound but vibration. Every heart in the crowd felt it. Long have men used words to twist truth into favor. Long have kings buried their sins beneath gold and song. But truth is a drum, when it beats, it breaks chains. Chief Oloran screamed and fled toward the palace steps, but the spirit raised its hand. His body froze, then crumbled into dust, carried away by the wind. The king wept openly, his crown slipping from his head. "I knew," he said brokenly. "I knew my son was not of my blood. Yet I chose silence, I feared war, I feared shame. And in silence, I betrayed both truth and peace." The spirit turned to him, its gaze both stern and merciful. "Even kings must kneel before truth." The king bowed his head low. Then the spirit turned to Ayo, who trembled before it. "You have carried our voice with courage. Your hands have bled for truth, yet you did not falter." But the world is not ready to bear such fire forever. The drum's glow began to fade. When men forget, they will seek lies again. But as long as wind and earth remain, our rhythm will whisper through them. Truth never dies, it only changes its drum. And with that, the spirit dissolved into light. The drum split in two, silent at last. The wind carried its final hum through the trees. Days passed. The storm subsided. The king, too weak to rule, abdicated the throne to his son, who now ruled not by blood, but by merit, chosen by the people. He vowed never to hide truth, no matter how bitter. Ayere refused any title or reward. He buried the remains of Ayanmiri beneath the palace tree, now struck and hollow, and carved on the trunk these words: "Let no lie grow where truth has spoken." Ayanmiri remained by his side. Together, they traveled the lands as healers and teachers, telling the story of the drum that knew every secret, a tale not of fear, but of wisdom. Years passed, then generations. Ayere flourished again. The talking drums returned, carrying peace and laughter across the hills. Yet, sometimes, on nights when thunder rolled and the air shimmered with memory, old villagers would pause and listen. From the distance, faint but unmistakable, came the beat of a drum no one could see. Dum, dum, dum. Truth never dies. And they would whisper to their children. That is Ayanmiri speaking, reminding us that every secret has its season, and no lie lives forever. Truth is like rhythm, it cannot be silenced. You may cover it with cloth, bury it beneath gold, or drown it in the noise of power, but it will find its beat again. For when truth calls, even the drums of the dead will rise to speak. If you enjoyed this story, like this video to support African storytelling. Subscribe for more magical folktales, myths, and legends. Comment below, what lesson did you learn from the story? And remember, a story shared is a story that lives forever.